never needed that.
I'm common sense, all right, and wouldn't have been a great believer in it. But I suppose the more I've listened to people and heard what they've had to say, I decided to kind of get some support for my own unfinished business. And I was 12 when my dad died, and he died suddenly. He was there one minute, he was gone the next. He was buried 2 days later. I didn't even go to his funeral. Children weren't really let go to funerals back in those days. He was rarely spoken about after he died. Now, I was stone mad about my father. I was the eldest of 6. The younger members of the family would hardly remember him at all. But for me, the memory was so clear and so strong. And it was gone, and there was never a goodbye. There was just nothing. He was just gone. Yeah. And I always remember the week after the funeral, it was literally only about the week after the funeral, having to sit an entrance exam to go to secondary school. And I had a fountain pen, and I was crying. And my tears were actually falling on the copybook and messing up the copybook and messing up my answers. And that was making me even sadder. And there was nobody I could say anything to about it. I couldn't talk to anybody. My siblings were too much younger. My mum was so busy because she had a farm, she had another business. She had to keep the roof over our heads. She had to keep, the bank paid, all of that. You couldn't burden her with more. But, I was 12. I totally lost my childhood. It was gone. That carefree time, now it was a totally different time. Taking over, responsibility for a house. And for younger siblings, because my mum had to be away so much. And nowadays you have rainbows, children, if they've had lost somebody that's close to them, they have counselling, they have support. There was nothing back in my day, nothing back when I was that age, and I don't think anyone would have even suggested it. It would have been 20 years on before you would get that kind of support. So a few years ago, I decided to just kind of deal with that and my grief. Yeah, because I don't think I ever cried for my father, I think.
So was there something blocked there all those years?
Yeah, because seemingly what happens is that the bond between, you think of the umbilical cord. Well, the bond between a parent and child is like a really strong umbilical cord. And it's very strong when they're born and very young. And, into your teens. And then there's a gradual pull away. The child has to break free. Teenager, the young adult has to break free, and you have to become independent. But if you lose a parent, in kind of vulnerable years, like, a 12-year-old heading into secondary school, meeting all these new people and everything, that can actually start a complete blockage. You've never moved out of being that 12-year-old in terms of grief, in terms of even, nearly relationships. And I just wanted to process what the loss of my father meant to me mentally, meant to me in terms of the way I looked at life, how I trusted people, how I delegated, everything like that. Because it had a huge impact. I mean, I think it was probably, for me, it was the biggest single event in my life. Because, he was there and he was gone. And that was it.
And no one talked about it afterwards?
Nobody talked. Nobody talked at all.
Did they tell you what happened?
No, and actually what happened, it was interesting. It was when my mum died, and that our neighbours came in and talked about the day he died. He was at the mart, he was leaning over a pen of calves. He was just kind of feeling their heads, and the next thing he never stood back up. And the neighbours telling me the efforts people went to try and do CPR and to try and bring him back to life, and nothing worked. And the journey with him to hospital, and my mum was there with 2 little children under 5 at the time. And I always remember the day he died. He died on a Monday, and I was in school, and there was I was sitting beside this friend of mine, and he said to me, "There's your cousin after jumping the wall of the school." And I looked out, and sure enough, it was my cousin. And he told the teachers, and the 4 of us who were in school were brought into the teacher's room and told that our father had died. It wasn't our mum, it wasn't granny, it wasn't uncles or aunts, it was the school teachers. And we were brought home, and I was immediately sent to the local town to get bread and ham and biscuits and cake and drink and everything for the wake.
Mairead,
that's how quick.
You know what? I just know that story has echoed out all over the country now, and so many people will identify with one or other or all aspects of it. So thank you so much for